take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. And as they close, notice that you can position your body in a way that feels comfortable. And as you're listening to my voice, I want you to pay attention to anything else around you. Maybe the sound of a whirring of a fan. Maybe the feeling of a breeze from the fan or an air conditioner on your skin. As you breathe in and breathe out, notice the feeling of the fabric of your clothes on your skin. Maybe there's other sounds, subtle sounds that you haven't noticed, but when you direct your attention to those other sounds, you can notice them. As you breathe in and breathe out, just allow your eyelids to feel heavier and heavier. That's it. Releasing any tension. And I want you to scan your body for any clues of tension. Sometimes it's a muscle that's tense and it doesn't need to be. Or your body locked in a certain position that could be more comfortable if it was changed. Sometimes tension is just breathing in a shallow way when it really just has this desire to breathe deeply and slowly, effortlessly. As you breathe in and breathe out, just feel like any tension in your forehead is melting away. Your eyelids are getting heavier and heavier. And I want you to imagine seeing someone you love yawn. Do you imagine their face and that noise they make when they yawn? It just creates this feeling of what it would be like for you to yawn. And maybe you can remember that just yawning is almost a little way of deliberately letting go of tension. So you don't need to actually yawn, but just the idea of yawning starts to release the tension around the jaw. Creates a relaxed feeling down your neck and your shoulders. And I want you to imagine that your head is feeling lighter as you picture a hot air balloon. And that hot air balloon is traveling over a forest and towards a mountain in the Black Forest. And I want you to change your perspective so that rather than seeing the hot air balloon, I want you to imagine you're on the hot air balloon. Beneath you can see the forest, you can see the mountain, but you can also see a meadow. And somewhere in that meadow, on the side of that mountain, overlooking a beautiful forest, is someone that looks like you. And I want you to change your perspective so you're now there in the meadow on the side of that mountain, and you can look up and see the same hot air balloon. And there's someone that looks like you on that hot air balloon, but it's your conscious mind, the logical, analytical part of your mind, still on that hot air balloon floating up toward the clouds. But the part there on that meadow, by the side of that mountain, looking out over treetops, that is the part of you that would like to change, to have a future different from your past, and to let go of the emotional baggage of the past that have been rippling through time and still affecting your present and your future. As you breathe in and breathe out there on that meadow, maybe it's a sunny day, maybe you can feel the sun on your skin, the fresh mountain air, and notice how deeply relaxed you're feeling there on that meadow on the side of that mountain, feeling so deeply relaxed. And I want you to find a place on that meadow, a place where you could lie down. And you could imagine anything is there. A big blanket, a comfortable chair, even a bed. But imagine you're lying on that comfortable thing. As I count down from 5 to 1, you will imagine feeling so deeply relaxed that you drift off into a deep sleep there on that comfortable, relaxing surface. 5, eyelids getting heavier and heavier. 4, just releasing any tension in the jaw. 3, arms and legs feel limp, loose, all light and floaty. 2, even your internal organs are starting to relax. And 1, just feeling like all tension is melting away as you drift off into your own imagination. And I want you to imagine you're now in a bubble going backwards in time. And you have a job to do. To remove the splinters of your past. At least once in your life, you had a splinter, tiny bit of wood that just got trapped under the surface of the skin, and maybe it was painful. And maybe back then you just figured out a way to remove that tiny bit of wood or metal or a fragment of stone under your skin, and when you did, it hurt slightly in the moment. But then you were able to heal properly. But I want you to imagine what would have happened if the splinter was never removed. If the skin healed over, perhaps that part of your body would be infected, painful to the touch, would have stayed there when actually it needed to be removed. And I want you to imagine going back in time in your bubble to remove the splinters that were still there. And to do that, all you need to do is to go back to a memory, see the memory as it was, and realize that you've either learned something from that moment or accepted that there is nothing that you could have done differently. So whether you go back to a memory and learn from it, or go back to a memory and accept that you did everything that you could have possibly done, and that any guilt or shame was not yours to carry, that acceptance also removes the splinters of the past. And in doing so, the past heals. And maybe it's a sound that you heard. But if you accept that you did what you could, then the splinter is healed. And each time you imagine a splinter healing, imagine removing a fragment of something from your skin, taking it from you, and imagine the skin healing afterwards. Each time you go back to a memory and remove that thing that was causing an emotion at the time and maybe even ripples afterwards. And if you learn from it, or accept it, or accept that it was never your emotion to carry, feel the splinter being removed. Feel the emotion being let go, like a weight is being lifted from your shoulders. But also feel that the past is healing, that it can heal. I want you to imagine that what could be a splinter to a child could be shrapnel to someone in the army. And maybe they were in battle and some shrapnel got under their skin, but it's much larger than a splinter. And if that shrapnel was never removed, it could heal over, but still have a fragment of metal connected to muscle tissue under the skin, causing pain. And I want you to imagine that that person in battle, if they never had the shrapnel removed, may use alcohol as a way of numbing and coping with the pain. But if that shrapnel was removed, then the alcohol is no longer necessary because the pain is gone. That's it. I want you to imagine that by removing the splinters and shrapnel of your past, if alcohol is being used at some level to numb the pain of the past, that is no longer necessary, creating a new opportunity for you to have a new relationship with alcohol, a future where you drink less because you don't need to drink. You drink slowly because if you are going to drink, why not savor the taste? Drink slowly, enjoy that drink perhaps with a meal. And if you are going to drink, why not drink in a social setting with other people? As you realize there is no desire to drink on your own. There is no desire to drink quickly. There is no desire to drink excessively. Because the wounds of the past have been learned from, healed, creating a new window in time for you to establish the kind of relationship with alcohol that you would want. And I want you to float in your bubble into the future and witness yourself with a new relationship with alcohol. Drinking less often, drinking slower. And hear the words leaving your mouth when you're being offered a drink, saying, no, that's fine, I'm okay. That's enough for me. Because it is enough for you. Less is more. Less often. Slower. And if you can see that future version of you with the relationship with alcohol that you would truly want, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to accept that this is not probability, possibility. This is destiny. This is your new relationship with alcohol. On your terms. You're not a robot working on autopilot, doing what you've done just because you've done it before. You get to decide how you want to drink, when you drink, how much you drink, and how quickly you drink. And you are unlocking all the resources to do that on your terms, in your way, realizing that each and every time you do it in the way you would like to do it, that itself feels like progress, and that feels better than even the drink feels. And if your unconscious mind is ready to fully heal from the past and establish a new relationship with alcohol, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. I want you to travel back from that bubble to that meadow. Imagine waking up from that comfortable place of rest and relaxation, and then imagine that you're now back in that hot air balloon, integrating with a logical, analytical part that will help you make these changes by steering you in the right direction through your intuition. And then imagine traveling all the way back to the present as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, fully integrated into this moment right now. Having removed the splinters of the past and created new neural pathways with your relationship with alcohol. Starting to count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.